Why was this legislation required then, given that we already had the Public Order Act of 1986, which covered most of this?
So actually, what we should remember, John, is that the roots of this legislation is in the Bracadale Review, and while offences such as aggravations as a result of hatred and prejudice are not new to Scottish legislation, there was a very strong feeling and a view that Police Scotland shared at the time with the Justice Committee that there was a need for legislation to be codified, to be simplified, to be brought into the one legislative framework in terms of simplicity and to aid understanding. And also, if I go back to Lord Bracadale's review, he also pointed to the potential consequences of prejudice and hatred and how that can be used to escalate harm and violence.
But that wasn't covered by the Public Order Act 1986. That wasn't covered.
So the consensus at the time, and this was thoroughly explored in the Bracadale Review, is that our legislation was quite unwieldy. There were different bits of legislation that covered different aspects of the law. There was a desire to codify and bring into the one piece of legislation to assist understanding.
But it doesn't include women.
No, and I look forward to bringing forward the misogyny bill later this year. There are, of course, general laws that are used day in, day out to protect women, but there will be very specific standalone legislation covering offences associated with misogyny. And
so when will the Scottish Government introduce that legislation?
So that will be this year. I'm in the process of some of the final policy deliberations. We have consulted on draft legislative provisions. We are giving further thought to those responses that we received to the consultation, and we are in the final stages of bringing forward a bill that will be introduced to Parliament this year. It's also important to say, John, that the findings of the Baroness Kennedy Working Group supported standalone legislation because it was indeed an option to include misogyny within the original hate crime legislation of a few years ago. But her recommendation was rooted in the fact that women's experience of hate crime is amplified by misogyny. And bearing in mind we are 51% of the population, I think that merits standalone legislation.